Hey everybody, thank you for watching. So we got you guys an update on a very big storm system that's going to be moving through the eastern United States, bringing some big-time severe weather and a lot of snowfall to areas farther north. I've also got you guys the latest details on a big warm-up that's coming to us that could actually break records for many people across the central and eastern United States. Got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you all for joining me here on this Saturday night. We've got a lot to talk about in this video. We're going to be going over the latest details on our big severe weather event, as well as what we could expect going forward as far as our temperatures go, because we've got big time heat coming in. As I said, we do have this big, it's not a heat wave, but it's this big round of above average temperatures that could really break some records, and by far. All right, so a lot of heat is coming in for areas farther south, and for areas farther north, we're just going to be talking about warmth in this case, because we're almost there, but we're not at spring and summer yet, but we will be there, and we will be talking about more heat for everybody else soon. All right, so starting out here with your current radar, you don't have anything going on really. I mean, all you've got is a little bit of energy going on up here across the extreme north central United States. That's where North Dakota, we have some isolated rain showers, isolated snow showers as well. That's actually stretching into Montana, so it's no big storm system that's coming in yet. All right, that's just a stray shower, a stray flurry that you're going to be dealing with. Also, some rain showers, which actually do have some thunderstorms. They're still off the coast of the Carolinas. I don't know what is going on with my pen here. All right, but if you could see that, that is going on here. Really, between Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina, you're going to be dry tonight, but you can definitely see some of that happening at the moment. Other than that, you're pretty much calm. Everybody's calm, and just we're awaiting that next storm system that is coming our way. All right, so moving on here, we'll take a look at our current alerts. You can see we don't have much going on in the central and eastern United States, and you may be wondering, what the heck am I seeing on my screen? If you just said we have nothing going on, but there's so much like action in the western United States. Well, there's a big storm system coming later, and it's actually the same one that we're dealing with for the central United States. But first, it's going to be impacting the Pacific Northwest. So we have alerts already set and ready for you guys. We're actually going to be talking about you guys today. I think I promised yesterday that we would, but we definitely should, because look at these alerts. I mean, in your pink shades, you've got winter storm warnings. This is going out for counties of western Montana, northern Idaho, and portions of central Oregon and Washington State. It's really for those upper elevations, the mountainous regions of the Pacific Northwest. That's where you're seeing those winter storm warnings. That's in your pink shade. All right, in your blue shade, these are your winter storm watches. All right, this is going out for really areas of western Colorado, so the Rockies here, really up through the upper elevations of Utah, western Wyoming, and scattered around here in northern Nevada, portions of southern Idaho. All right, I think I said Oregon, but I meant Idaho if I did say Oregon earlier. But this is Idaho here, southern Idaho, and then also portions of southeastern Montana. All right, and then your wind alerts here will start out in this tan shade. This is like your brownish tan shade. You have these wind advisories that are going up for scattered areas across Oregon, Washington State, for northern Nevada, northeastern California, and that's going to be pretty much it for those wind. For the wind advisory, but then you can see you also do have high wind warnings and high wind watches. We'll start with the high wind watches. This is in more of that deeper brown shade that you see here. This is going out, for example, for northern Nevada, and then one county out there into south central Wyoming. Now in that gold shade, this is where you have high wind warnings, not only for those upper elevations, but even those the surrounding areas. Even if you're slightly if you're slightly elevated, you still most likely will be dealing with those gusty winds. So very windy conditions in this area, and there's some mountains out here where, if you're elevated, just like at least like 20,000, 30,000 feet, I mean, you guys could be dealing with gusts that could get over 70 miles per hour. So extreme wind gusts are possible. Hurricane force winds are possible in the mountains here of the Pacific Northwest. But your high wind warnings are in your gold shade. I'll put my mouse here over southeastern Wyoming, for example, but they're scattered around here so much that I don't really want to go one by one. But yeah, it's going to be pretty much it. And then you've got red flag warnings for northeastern New Mexico, for eastern Colorado, and then you also do have in this purple shade some winter weather advisories for the Sierras here of California. You've got northwestern Oregon, and then scattered areas around the Pacific Northwest in general. All right. Also, one more thing to mention. All right, we do have wind advisories going up for central South Carolina. Just wanted to mention that. I don't know if that's including Lexington. I might be. All right. But just some very gusty winds out there tonight. That was actually taken down from northwestern Georgia. So this actually was a little bit like more widespread. But now that's just moved off into central South Carolina. All right, so some very gusty winds are definitely possible there. Just be aware of that. All right, so let's move on here to the NAM 3 kilometer model. We're going to quickly go over this big upcoming storm in the Pacific Northwest. Luckily, this is not an atmospheric river, just a storm that's going to get caught up with that this flow that's moving down south because this jet stream. Look at this jet stream. The top of the jet stream is way up here into it's right into Canada. All right, the top very rare very often do you see the jet stream get all the way far north, like the warm sector gets so far north it's reaching into Canada. You don't see that very often, but we see it today, and we have a big storm coming on tonight. So this is 6 p.m. Tomorrow morning. This would be for Eastern time. So this is for you guys. I think it was you guys were like 3, 4, 5. I think 3 hours back. All right, so this would be right around late afternoon for you guys tomorrow. And you have some very heavy snow and very heavy rain moving really on for the western portions of Washington State, and then you've got a lot of snowfall for the surrounding areas. But this is your low. This is your 984 millibar low pressure that's coming in right here. But this is a very fast oncoming cold front. This is really going to change everything over to snow for these areas, and you can see we're seeing very heavy bands of snowfall set up here for those mountainous regions of western Montana, northern Idaho. But you've got like central and northern and central portions of Oregon and getting dumped on with snowfall. The coastline here, also going down to California, still staying as all rainfall. Maybe some tiny pockets of very heavy rainfall isolated. But it's really those inland areas, especially these mountains. I mean, look how much snow this is just going to be dumping. And if you are if really elevation is going to be a big deal with this system, you're going to see when we look at the snowfall map, it's going to be so like the tiny spots between like it's going to be such a sharp gradient between like 5 inches and like 60 inches of snowfall. That's how crazy this system is going to be. But these might be bands, these might be snow squalls, but I believe these would be bands of extremely heavy rain setting up here across southern Idaho and then portions of southern Montana. So big time snow rates with this. And you're not only going to get one, but you're going to get many just bands of snowfall that are going to be moving through all the way down south here to northern Oregon. But we're just going to see it's going to be a lot of it's not I wouldn't say it might be hit or miss, all right, but I think it's going to be so widespread that I think that everybody's at least going to get one band, but it's very isolated, meaning that there's going to be a lot of different bands. All right, I guess I shouldn't say isolated, but that would be more of the rain, the pockets of heavy rain on the coastline. But you get what I mean. There's going to be a lot of different areas that are going to be experiencing different bands of snowfall. But these bands, oh my gosh, they're just going to be unloading massive amounts of snowfall. And let's move on to your snowfall totals because I want to get through this quickly. Oh my gosh, look at this. All right, so we'll start out here in the mountains of Washington State. Expect anywhere from really this is gonna be crazy, but like 2 to 5 feet of snowfall here. Look at that, 65 inches. Wow, 65 inches. What is that? Oh my gosh, that's over 5. That's 5 feet 5 inches of snowfall right there. That is absolutely crazy. That's absolutely incredible. Wow. All right. But these upper elevations, even if you're slightly elevated, you'll probably end up with like 1 to 3 feet of snow. All right. But if you are like elevated once again, like 30,000 feet, you're definitely going to be seeing like those, like 4 or 5 feet of snow and beyond potentially, depending on how high you are. But I think we just flashed 74 inches of snow. Wow. All right, so that is 6 feet. I believe that's 6 feet 2 inches of snowfall right there. So, I mean, for these upper elevations, guys, 3 to 6 inches, 3 to 6 feet, all right, is what you can expect. But here we go. This is for western Oregon. Let's move farther south. 2 to 4 feet of snow is what you could expect, but the surrounding areas really 1 to 3 inches with some isolated areas here that could pick up a little bit more snow. I don't know why we're seeing snow on the coastline. This may just be some mountains that are along the coastline here, but if you're elevated even slightly, excuse me, if you are even slightly elevated in some of these areas, guys, you could definitely end up with over 2, maybe even 3 feet of snow. But even down by the Sierras, it's just you can see the difference between like no snow completely to like what is that 3 feet of snow. All right, that's pretty crazy. But this is where I am just concerned, like literally concerned. Let's go to western Montana, where we're talking about 70 inches here. I mean, this is like, I mean, imagine 6 feet of snow. That's taller than me. That is taller than me. That is taller than some people. So I know that there's really not any people out here, and I'm sure that there's nobody that lives out here in these upper elevations of Montana, western Montana. But honestly, for those people that are out there, all right, oh my gosh, I just hope that you're gonna be okay because it's gonna be taller than your door. You're not gonna be able to get outside. All right, this is how much snow this system is gonna be packing, but for everybody, all right, for everybody watching from the Pacific Northwest, if you are in the upper elevations, but like over like I would say over 10,000 feet of elevation, expect 2 to 4 feet of snow, and then some areas not likely or not possible, but not likely, but definitely some different areas will end up with over 4 feet of snow, talking about 5, 6, 7 feet of snow. All right. So let's move on from that system. All right, let's actually the same system, but let's move on to a more wide view. We're looking at the GFS model. We're comparing the GFS and the European again, talking about severe weather, guys. I promised that I'd give you guys daily updates, and we're going to continue to pump these out. But here we go. This is 1 a.m. on Tuesday, and you've got a 991 millibar low. That's pretty much shaping up exactly how it was yesterday on the GFS. This is your subtropical jet and your northern branch jet stream about to merge here, and boom, here we go. This is a 989 millibar low pressure center right here by 1 a.m. on Wednesday. Now these times are in Eastern time, so depending on what time zone you're in, just subtract the amount of hours from the time that you see up here. So if you're in Western time, you are 3 hours, or it might be a Pacific time. I don't know. All right. But just try and stay with me here with these time frames here. It's going to be very important to know what time we're looking at here on these different models because there's a lot of different moving parts, and if one gets delayed, this whole thing could change. All right. But we have a 989 millibar low that's being pushed off by a cold front here, and this is bringing snow all the way down, really from northern Wisconsin all the way down to pretty much western Kansas. All right, that's that big swath of snow. What we're looking at here is this frontal energy inside the warm sector. This is a big ridge that's forming, and you at this point can already see that the flow of the moisture is already going to have to be pushed up and slightly off to the north and east. All right, so that's going to mean that you're not going to have as good of a moisture return for areas of like northern Texas into Oklahoma and Kansas. I find that interesting to look at, but I do think that if this were to play out with that cold front just moving faster, it's going to be really be the thing that's going to put down these storms. But we don't have any action by Wednesday morning, and this is Wednesday morning that by the time you're pretty much waking up. All right, so this is early Wednesday morning, and you have rainfall and you would have storms at this point, but there's nothing. You don't see any reds or oranges at this point, and you would have storms that would start to fire in this area. But I mean, you don't really see any of like robust activity, like no deep convection until we get to mid-afternoon. Now this is 1 p.m. and now we have this orange and yellow and red line over central Ohio. All right, this is signifying some strong to severe storms. So number one, it looks like that the GFS wants to shift things farther north, which is kind of it's communicating with the European model. It's kind of leaning on the European model side. All right. But I think that also with the cold front moving very fast, I think that we're just going to see it. We're just probably going to see a severe threat farther north, but I think it's going to be for Wednesday and not Tuesday. All right. But you've got a little bit of snow on the backside, but definitely, really, a lot of this has just completely stayed as rain. But then this continues to move off to the east, and here we go. We still have this is by Thursday actually, but for some people at this point, it would be for when this is actually Wednesday. Oh gosh, I apologize, but this is still Wednesday night, and we still have potentially isolated severe storms across the Ohio River Valley, and we have snow that's actually moving through some of these areas at this point because you've got high pressure and very cold air that's going to be it's going to be changing that backside rainfall over to snowfall. You've got very strong winds with an excellent moisture return moving up from the Gulf Coast and the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. So a lot of moisture is going to be pumped into this thing. And if we didn't have as much moisture, I think that we would have had a crazy snowstorm with this. And if this was not as negatively tilted, we would have like an insane snowfall. This would have been probably the biggest snowstorm of the year for some areas if this were to be a little bit different. But it's just so much moisture that's getting pumped into this thing that it's so warm in the atmosphere that you can't get snow. All right. But this is still moving off to the east, and you finally get enough cold air to be an influence on this backside rainfall. It changes over to snow, and at this point you've got heavy snow all the way really through the interior northeast, down through the Appalachian Mountains, and now it's snowing very heavily all the way down to the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. But you've got just a massive storm. The low pressure center is completely off the map. That's how far north this is up into Canada, and it stretches all the way down to the Gulf Coast. I mean, this is incredibly big, in size. And let's look at the North American side of things. Look at that. I mean, this is way up into almost. I mean, look how far north that is. All right, this is an absolutely massive storm system. All right, it's incredibly strong. All right, it's just the dynamics and the thermodynamics that aren't lining up to get that massive, severe weather event. But I mean, it's possible. That's why I keep saying in the intro of the video, massive severe weather event possible. All right, and so let's compare it now to the European model. We'll move on to the Euro. What does the Euro show tonight? All right, well, we get that low, say 988 millibar low. You got some storms that are starting to pop off here across portions of southeastern Missouri, so near the boot heel of Missouri, southern Illinois, and then really all the way up to Michigan is where we have some isolated strong to severe storms. And this is already by Wednesday morning. Now we get to Wednesday afternoon. You don't see any deep pockets of oranges and reds, but I mean you do have some isolated strong to severe storms still that would probably be forming a line here. And if this cold front backs off a little bit, if we see this cold front a little bit farther to the west and away from these storms, I think that we would have more room for these to be discrete storms. Discrete supercells in this case would probably mean that there would be room for rotation, and that would just increase the tornado potential. All right, but this is when you get a full-on line, segment here. That really extends all the way up from Ohio down towards the Dixie Alley in here of northern northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. All right, and I'm not sure yet if we would probably need a higher resolution model to figure this out. But I don't know if this would either be a quasi-linear convective system, which is basically fancy for a squall line, which is a line of thunderstorms that basically serves as a damaging wind gust line, or if this would be a line of discrete supercells that are still inside of that warm sector, inside of the boundary of warm air, that have enough room to rotate, and that they go tornadic. All right, but this is still looking like a line of storms that's getting all the way up to here into the northeast, and it's so incredibly strong here. I mean, it's a 978 millibar low, which is respectful enough, but I mean, it's getting so far north and it's getting so strong that it's basically pulling up all the moisture that's left here from the Gulf and the Atlantic. All right, this may be the strongest storm system of the winter. All right, I think it's possible. This may be the strongest storm system that we're going to see in a few months. All right, because you very rarely get the warm air. This is the warm sector all the way up into Canada. All right, and it's February, so that's why I'm saying that. For summer, obviously, it's still up in Canada, it's still warm. But I mean, this is February, and you're supposed to be getting monster blizzards, but you only get a big snowstorm if you're way up here in northern Canada, which there's a very, very low population. So very interesting to see that. But I just wanted to point out how strong this is going to be, and how much moisture it's going to be pulling up, and just the fact of how strong it's going to be with pulling up this moisture may have to prompt high wind warnings and at least watches for areas up and down the East Coast. And we've actually seen that happen before with these negatively tilted troughs and these storm systems, where they just have so much energy pulling up moisture down south from the Atlantic and the Gulf that it gets so windy here on the coastline. Just and even with the inflow, all right, you just get a lot of gusty conditions, and I think that's possible with the system. But this moves out, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty much it with that storm system. But I think the time frame's starting to narrow down. It's looking like it's gonna be mid afternoon Wednesday to like evening into overnight. I think that's going to be the main severe threat, but still in the European model, we're hanging on to a chance for some prefrontal supercells, and this would be a tornado. Definitely would be that just that time frame for tornadoes and large hail. But the damage and wind gust threat will certainly be late Wednesday. I think that's a time frame that we can be a little bit more, we can be a little bit more trustworthy in. But you never know. All right, we gotta continue to see what the model trends are, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And this will actually be entering the 3-day range on the SPC, which means we don't actually get our tornado, damage and wind gusts, and hail threat like percentage, but we can actually get a better understanding of what's going to happen. And also we're going to get our percentage of just severe storms in general by tomorrow, so that's going to be interesting to see. All right, so here we go. This is your current SPC outlook. This is your day 4 slight risk, which has actually changed pretty greatly. It's actually moved further north again, and a little bit of a different area on the north side of things. But this is going to be for your Tuesday. This is going all the way up from now central Michigan. Now this was only for extreme southwestern Michigan, but this is now all the way up to central Michigan. This goes all the way down through all of Indiana, and then you've got the majority of Illinois down through southeastern Missouri, and then you've got northern Arkansas included in this risk area. All right, this is a 15% slight risk for severe weather. This includes Chicago, Illinois, Indianapolis, Indiana. You got St. Louis, Missouri, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, this is a total population of 28.5 million people. That's incredible. Just how big this risk area will be, and I think, guys, that this will most likely stay as a slight risk. So I want to get your. I honestly, I don't think that this storm is going to be as bad as we first thought it would be. I know that the day 6 and the day 7 slight risks were really terrifying, or especially the fact that we haven't seen severe weather in a long time. But I think that this day 1, this day 4, it's just not going to do very well. But I think that we will stay as a slight risk. We may get upgraded to maybe an enhanced risk somewhere inside of this area. We just got to figure it out. And we just got to, get to that time frame where we can really just get the latest and the last juicy details before these storms actually end up firing in this region. All right. So let's move on to day 5. This is for your Wednesday, and you've got just a smaller area for the Dixie Alley. This is going all the way up from north central Kentucky all the way down through Tennessee and northern Mississippi, Alabama. You've got Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, and Huntsville, Alabama. It comes out to a total population of just under 10.5 million people. But yeah, this is the day that I think we're gonna see a better chance for severe storms, because this storm system will have more time to really develop and strengthen, and at that point you're gonna have a greater chance of just more convection and more storm development. So I think not only that, but also um, you see how, if we look at the models, the cold front is still back here into like Arkansas and Missouri. So I think that on the eastern end of this slight risk is where you may end up with the, just the highest potential for long track severe storms. All right, but we still got a 15% slight risk for this area as well for your Wednesday. All right. So let's break it down. The severe weather. We'll start out with your 500 millibar jet stream winds. All right, that is a incredible trough, but that is 204 hours out, so we're not quite there yet. But here we go. This is your northern branch jet stream and your subtropical jet stream coming out of the Pacific Ocean. These two jet streams are going to merge, and that's how you're going to get a very strong dip in the jet stream here, which is your cold front, and then this is your mega trough that's digging down here. And you can see that this is already by Wednesday. We're setting up here in the morning for when these storms will begin to fire across the region with 80 to 90 knot jet stream winds. That's pretty strong, and that's enough to definitely cause at least some rotation if we get some changing heights, but definitely would increase the threat for damage and wind gusts. And at this point, this is still like neutrally tilted, so this is not even negatively tilted yet. And this is even slightly positively tilted. Look at that. That is positively tilted right there. This is definitely positively tilted. Still positively tilted very slightly. Neutral, and then we'll get to negative. But you at this point, this storm is starting to organize a lot. All right, and you've got more of a widespread 80 to like 100 knot jet stream here, and you could argue that that's about 105 to 110 miles per hour, and this is way up in the atmosphere, like 20,000 feet above your head. All right, so this is the mid to low level jet that we're talking about, and this is really over the lower Midwest all the way down through Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and then really down to Oklahoma. All right, so this is a pretty big area that you see in red. This is where you're seeing the strong jet stream winds. So if you see any area highlighted in red, this is where you're going to have at least the strong atmospheric wind speeds that would support severe weather. But yeah, this just starts to rip as we get into this is late Wednesday, that time frame I'm worried about. We're starting to come up here, and I think that this is really going to be an Ohio Valley severe threat. It's going to be really from Ohio down to Tennessee is where I'm concerned the most, but you've got a jet stream that's ripping at 110 knots here that's really going through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, but you still got jet stream winds anywhere from 90 to 110 knots all the way down to Tennessee. So a big-time area that's being influenced by these jet stream winds. And notice how this is starting to become, this is actually going from a positively tilted to a negatively tilted trough. So that means that this is strengthening, because a strong storm system becomes negatively tilted, but we don't see that yet until we get to really, this is Thursday, but this is Wednesday to Thursday, and this is starting to become very negatively tilted. But you've got a jet stream that's ripping at 115 to 120 knots. You could argue that's up to 130 miles per hour. Obviously, this is not on the ground. All right, if it was on the ground, that would be a whole different situation. But these are very strong atmospheric winds. But because you're not going to have such a moist area, you're going to have a moist area in this area. All right. But because you don't have such a good, feed of the moisture all the way up here, all right, in the Northeast, that's why you're not going to see any severe weather up here. And so the reason why we're not seeing severe weather, but we have this very strong, what's going to happen with no severe weather but very strong jet stream winds is you're just going to have a very windy day out here, and that's going to kind of support my reason why I think that we may see at least some wind advisories, but maybe some high wind watches, maybe even some high wind warnings up the East Coast. But there it goes, and at this point it's completely negatively tilted, full-blown negatively tilted trough, and then that kind of moves out. But that gets very strong, and I think that this is really going to be the strongest hour of it. It's right here. All right, it's going really, it's right centralized over Indiana, down through Tennessee, and maybe even as far south as northern Mississippi and Alabama. All right, so those were your kinematics. Now let's look at your thermodynamics. All right, so these are your dew points here, your surface dew points. We're already getting in the 40s and 50s at this point. This is Tuesday here, and then I mean, you can see that this dry line it's minding its own business at this point, but it's starting to kind of influence this, uh, you know, um, this boundary of warm air, and you can actually see that there's already a tight gradient between here in central Texas between like 65-degree dew points and 30-degree dew points. But here we go, and we're getting into Wednesday here. This is early. This is Tuesday into Wednesday, and you already have the stage set for dew points rising up into the upper 50s for here of the lower Midwest, and then all the way down to the Dixie Alley and the deep south here. This is where we have dew points getting it up into the lower 60s. That's definitely enough to support some very strong and severe storms out in the area. But watch as as these storms begin to, just as they begin to start firing across this region, this is when you get these dew points up in the 60s all the way up to the lower Midwest. But you get a dry line. This is the dry line is going to be a huge thing that's just going to be blocking the chance for severe storms. If you didn't have such an aggressive cold front and aggressive dry line, all right, you would have a big severe weather threat. And I think that, I just think that you would have a much bigger chance of seeing a widespread severe weather outbreak and maybe even a multi-day severe weather outbreak. And this is basically the reason why we're not seeing such a big severe weather event, just in my thoughts. All right, but you still have dew points getting up in the 60s, barely up here, but into southern Ohio, and this is going all the way down to the Gulf Coast, really anywhere from 60 to 65-degree dew points, and then in this green shade, you're still well into the mid to upper 50s, and then this thing moves off to the east. But I mean, look how aggressive this dry line is. Very sharp. Look here into central. This is Texarkana. Look at this. 64 degrees just up the road. 30 degrees. I mean, literally, it's just crazy. It's so crazy how sharp that gradient is going to be. So it could literally be just up like an interstate or a highway a few miles. You go from lower 60s for your dew points to the 40s and 30s. All right, so that's pretty crazy to see that. And then that's pretty much it. After that storm system moves out with this crazy cold front, this crazy dry line moving out. So that's enough with that storm system. Hallelujah. We've got heat coming up, or not heat, but heat for some. All right, but warmth for many here, and we're expecting well above average temperatures. And now this was actually upgraded from a 80 to 90 at max to a 90 to 100% chance of seeing above average temperatures. This is for the Great Lakes, written all over it, but also areas spreading out a little bit for really all of the Midwest and the interior Northeast. But this is going all the way to the Great Plains, and then really for the entire central and eastern United States, we're expecting widespread above average temperatures that will smash records. But on the West Coast, you also got an intensified forecast for below average temperatures. So now we're expecting an 80 to 90% chance of below average temperatures here for really the coast of California and the coast of Oregon. All right, and then this is valid for March 1st to 5th. So the first 5 days of March, you got very nice, just balmy conditions in the central and eastern United States, cold conditions in the west. This will continue for the next few days. Now this goes all the way up to March 9th. And now we switch our attention to the Northeast, where everybody is getting in the 60s. And, for the Carolinas and Virginia in the 70s, DC probably up to 70 degrees. Lucky. Oh, I am just far north that I am still in the 60-degree range. But, I mean, oh my gosh, it would be awesome to get into at least the upper 60s. But it looks like we're not going to crack at least 63 degrees, but whatever, it's coming. But you've got a very good chance of seeing still above average temperatures for the central United States, and definitely now for the eastern United States, as we would round up the first week of March. All right, and then still below average temperatures in the west, and then we'll see this second cold front start to push off this warmth, and we'll just have to wait another warm front, or basically just warm air boundary to settle in, and then we'll get back to above average temperatures. But that is going to wrap up the video. And we'll look at the Canadian model. I didn't realize that I still have a tab open, but this is just to show you your temperatures. We're getting into the 80s and the 70s here, in the 60s for areas of the south central United States by Monday. This will actually help with our severe weather forecast a little bit. And so this is Tuesday. Look how warm we are on Tuesday. And another reason why we're seeing a big severe weather chance is because we're just well above average. I mean, if we were at least a little bit above average here in the Midwest, we still would not be, in this warmth that would be supportive enough, at least, for severe thunderstorms. But we're in the 70s, all the way up to Illinois, all the way up to um, uh, Wisconsin. So very interesting to see that. But here comes that nasty cold front, and we're still only this is Wednesday here. This is actually still only Tuesday, and your cold front is making its way down through the Great Plains, and then by Wednesday, this is Wednesday morning, all this warm air is going to be basically shifted over to the east, and it's just going to be this dry line, this cold front that's going to really destroy the chance for severe thunderstorms. But you're going to be in the 80s and 70s for areas in the southeast and in the northeast. Slowly but surely, you're getting into the 60s. Then that second ridge, that second wave of above average temperatures is going to settle in, and let's see how high we can get. Oh, we ran out of model runtime on the Canadian models. Let's go over to the GFS. Let's see how warm we'll get. We'll get in the 60s there. All right. But yeah. All right. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So stay tuned. Got more updates on the way with that severe weather. Enjoy the weather that you've got before and after your big storm comes in. Alright, and yeah, it's going to be pretty much it. Stay safe out there. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Be sure that you've got National Weather Service alerts on. Be sure that you've downloaded a weather app, or just be sure that you are tuning into me every time I upload, just so you are staying weather aware and you're sure that you know what's going to be happening at your house for the next week. Alright, so that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. See you guys later.